1. The Vanishing Battalion of Gallipoli. August 28, 1915. The Allied forces were locked in brutal combat at Suvla Bay, Turkey, during World War I. 3 British soldiers from the 1st 4th Norfolk Regiment watched something extraordinary unfold. Their entire battalion, approximately 800 men, marched up a hillside toward a strange loaf-shaped cloud hanging oddly close to the ground. The soldiers entered this cloud formation. Then, impossibly, the cloud lifted off the ground and drifted away against the wind direction. The battalion was never seen again. Not a single body was recovered. No evidence of battle, capture, or desertion was ever found. The Turkish forces had no record of engaging them. 50 years later, these 3 witnesses came forward with identical testimonies. They'd stayed silent for decades, fearing ridicule. Military historians have proposed mass burial, POW camps, and navigational errors. But none explain the complete absence of remains or records. The New Zealand archives contain the original sworn statements, the cloud, the timing, the total disappearance. It remains one of warfare's most baffling mysteries. 2. Rudolph Fentz and the Man. From 1876. June 1950. Times Square, New York City. A man in Victorian-era clothing suddenly appeared in the middle of traffic, looking utterly bewildered. Before anyone could react, he was struck and killed by a taxi. Police identified him as Rudolph Fentz based on items in his pockets: old currency, a letter dated 1876, and business cards with a Fifth Avenue address. The case appeared in NYPD records, though later investigations questioned some details. The deceased carried 19th century money not in collector's condition, but worn from circulation. His clothing showed signs of regular wear, not costume quality. Most disturbing was his expression. Witnesses described absolute confusion, as if the modern world was completely alien. Captain Hubert de Rime investigated. He found an elderly woman who identified herself as Fentz's widow. She stated her husband had gone out for a walk in 1876 and never returned. She'd filed a missing persons report 74 years earlier. The original report was located in archives. Whether misidentification, elaborate hoax, or genuine temporal displacement, the Fentz case influenced time travel fiction for decades. But those worn coins and that authenticated missing persons report, they resist easy dismissal. 3. The Philadelphia Experiment Survivors. October 28, 1943. The USS Eldridge allegedly participated in a classified Navy experiment at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. The goal was to make ships invisible to radar using Einstein's unified field theory. According to multiple testimonies, something went catastrophically wrong. Witnesses claimed the ship vanished, reappeared in Norfolk, Virginia, miles away, then returned to Philadelphia. Crew members reportedly suffered horrific effects. Some fused into the ship's metal structure, others became transparent, several went insane. A few allegedly gained the ability to walk through walls or vanish at will. Carlos Allende wrote detailed letters to astronomer Morris Jessup describing the experiment. Jessup died under suspicious circumstances in 1959. The Office of Naval Research denied the experiment's existence, but declassified documents show the Navy was indeed researching degaussing and radar invisibility during this period. Crew member Alfred Bialik later claimed he'd time traveled during the experiment to 2137 and 2749. While most dismiss his accounts, the Navy's persistent classification of certain 1943 documents keeps speculation alive. Legitimate researchers note the fundamental physics involved could theoretically create temporal distortions. The truth remains locked in sealed files. 4. The Moberly-Jourdain incident at Versailles. August 10, 1901. 2 respected English academics, Charlotte Ann Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain, visited the Palace of Versailles. While searching for the Petit Trianon, they became disoriented. The atmosphere grew oppressive. They encountered people in period clothing who seemed oddly two-dimensional. A woman in old-fashioned dress sat sketching. A man in a cloak warned them away from a certain path. Buildings appeared that don't exist in 1901 Versailles. They later identified the sketching woman as Marie Antoinette from historical portraits. The buildings matched 1770s layouts, confirmed through architectural records. Both women were principal and vice principal of St. Hugh's College, Oxford, hardly prone to flights of fancy. They independently documented their experience before comparing notes. Details matched perfectly. They spent years researching, publishing, and adventure in 1911 under pseudonyms. Skeptics propose hallucination or misidentification of a costume rehearsal. But the architectural details they described weren't publicly known in 1901. The Trianon 1770s layout wasn't documented until later research. Whatever they experienced, these credible witnesses saw something that transported them, however briefly, to pre-revolutionary France. Their detailed account remains in academic circulation, unrefuted. 5. The time-traveling hipster photograph. The 1941 photograph from the reopening of the South Fork Bridge in Goldbridge, British Columbia, shows a crowd in period-appropriate attire, except for one individual. He wears a modern zip-up sweater, printed t-shirt, and sunglasses with contemporary styling. His hair is distinctly modern. The photograph, held in the Brelorn Pioneer Museum, has been examined by experts. The Kodak film has been authenticated as genuinely from 1941. The image shows no signs of manipulation or superimposition, yet this individual's entire presentation, clothing style, accessories, even his stance, seems completely out of place. Researchers attempted to explain each element. Sweaters with zippers existed, though were rare and styled differently. Sunglasses were available, but had different frames. T-shirts existed, but weren't worn as outerwear. The specific combination, however, didn't exist in 1940s fashion. The museum maintains the original negative. Skeptics argue every individual item could theoretically exist in 1941, just rarely combined this way. But fashion historians note the modern slim-fit styling, the specific sunglasses shape, and the casual layering represents early 2000s aesthetics. The museum allows independent examination. Whatever the explanation, this figure's presence in a verified 1941 photograph continues generating debate. The archive reference number is available for researcher verification. 6. John Titor's predictions. November 2000. Someone using the name John Titor appeared on internet forums claiming to be a time traveler from 2036. He provided technical diagrams of his time machine, discussed the physics of Kerr black holes, and described a future civil war in America starting in 2004. While many predictions failed, several were eerily accurate. He mentioned CERN would create micro black holes, announced in 2008. He described mad cow disease spreading. It did. He warned about the perils of centralized computing and surveillance, prescient regarding our current era. The technical drawings showed remarkable sophistication. Physicist Dr. Frank Tipler noted the physics described wasn't completely inconsistent with theoretical models. The diagrams included details about components that wouldn't be widely discussed until years later. Titor vanished in March 2001. Investigators traced posts to a Florida address, but the occupant denied involvement. The level of physics knowledge demonstrated suggested graduate-level understanding. Skeptics note, failed predictions prove it was a hoax. Believers point to the accurate technological forecasting and sophisticated physics knowledge. The case influenced internet culture significantly. The complete post-archive exists at several universities studying digital phenomena. Whether elaborate fiction or something stranger, Titor's posts demonstrated either remarkable foresight or something we can't quite explain. 7. The Green Children of Woolpit. 12th century, Woolpit, Suffolk, England. Two children with green-tinted skin, speaking an unknown language, appeared near harvest time. They wore strange clothing and would eat nothing but raw beans. The boy died shortly after, but the girl survived, gradually lost her green coloration, and learned English. She claimed they came from a land called St. Martin's, where the sun never shone, and everything existed in twilight. While tending their father's animals, they heard a loud noise and found themselves in Woolpit. She couldn't explain how they arrived. The account appears in two independent 12th century chronicles, Ralph of Coggeshall and William of Newburgh. Both were careful historians who documented other events accurately. The girl eventually married and lived normally, but never wavered from her story. Modern theories range from Flemish orphans with dietary chlorosis to extraterrestrial visitors. Some researchers propose a time slip, suggesting the children came from a future Earth experiencing nuclear winter. The Twilight Land description matches predicted conditions following such an event. The Catholic Church recorded the incident as genuine. The children are buried in Woolpit. Their story influenced folklore for centuries. Whether interdimensional travelers, extraterrestrials, or temporally displaced humans, these green children remain one of medieval England's most documented mysteries. 8. The Moberly-Jourdain time slip at Petit Trianon. Returning to Versailles in January 1902, Charlotte Moberly and Jourdain found everything different. The landscape had changed. Buildings they'd previously seen weren't there. Paths had altered. They compared their experience with historical records of the grounds as they existed in Marie Antoinette's time. They discovered they'd described Versailles exactly as it appeared in 1789. The bridge they'd crossed was demolished in 1795. The kiosk they'd seen was removed in 1810. The woman sketching matched descriptions of Marie Antoinette on a specific day in 1789 when she received news of mob unrest in Paris. Both women documented everything independently before discussing it. Their observations matched historical records unavailable to the public in 1901. They identified specific individuals from the 18th century portraits, including the Comte de Vaudreuil and other courtiers. Over 10 years, they researched obsessively, consulting archives across France. Every detail they'd observed corresponded to documented historical facts about the Trianon in 1789. Their academic reputations were impeccable. Neither had any history of mental illness or attention-seeking behavior. The Society for Psychical Research investigated extensively. While proposing various psychological explanations, investigators couldn't explain how the women knew architectural and landscape details not in any accessible records. Their book went through multiple editions. The case remains a cornerstone of time-slip research. 9. The Disappearance of Owen Parfitt. June 1763, Shepton Mallet, Somerset. 70-year-old Owen Parfitt sat in his chair outside his sister's cottage, paralyzed from a stroke. His sister Susanna went inside to fetch something. She was gone less than 5 minutes. When she returned, Owen had vanished. The chair remained. His blanket lay undisturbed. He couldn't walk, couldn't move. Local authorities launched an extensive search. Neighbors testified they'd seen nothing. The narrow lane provided no cover. Anyone carrying a paralyzed man would have been seen. Parish records document the incident. Multiple witness testimonies survive in Somerset archives. The magistrate personally investigated, finding no evidence of foul play, abduction, or natural explanation. Owen simply ceased to exist at that moment. No body was ever discovered. No ransom demand came. No explanation emerged. His sister maintained until her death that something impossible had occurred. The chair became a local curiosity, preserved as evidence of the unexplained. Some researchers proposed temporal displacement, that Owen slipped through a momentary breach in time. The complete absence of struggle, the undisturbed blanket, and the impossible speed of disappearance suggest something beyond conventional abduction. The official records make no conclusion. The case influenced Victorian literature about mysterious disappearances. Somerset archives maintain the original documents, available for historical research. 10. The Vanishing Hotel in Paris. October 1979. Two British couples, the Simpsons and the Gisbys, drove through France towards Spain. They stopped at an old-fashioned hotel with heavy wooden furniture, no telephone, and staff in period clothing. The building seemed anachronistic but charming. They ate dinner, slept peacefully, and continued their journey. 2 weeks later, returning home via the same route, they tried finding the hotel. It didn't exist. No building matched its location. They had photographs from the trip, but film from that night showed nothing. Blank negatives where the hotel photos should be. Their receipt, kept carefully, had vanished from their travel documents. The couples reported the incident to the Society for Psychical Research. Investigators verified their credibility, solid citizens with no history of fantasy. The specific route was traced. No building matching the description existed or had recently been demolished. Land registry records showed nothing. Other travelers reported similar experiences on French roads, staying in hotels that subsequently couldn't be found. Some researchers propose these are temporal pockets, places where past and present briefly overlap. The couple's matching testimonies, the missing photographs, and the vanished receipt suggest something beyond faulty memory. French paranormal researchers documented several comparable cases along specific routes. The pattern suggests certain locations may be prone to temporal anomalies. Whatever happened, 4 rational people experienced something that shouldn't be possible. 11. The Philadelphia Experiment, Part 2, Project Rainbow. Beyond the initial incident, witness testimonies describe subsequent experiments throughout 1943. Al Bielek, who claimed involvement, stated he and his brother Duncan jumped from the USS Eldridge during the October experiment to escape the horrific effects, landing in 1983 at Montauk, Long Island. According to Bielek, they were recruited into the Montauk Project, a continuation of Philadelphia research. He described time portals, mind control experiments, and multiple temporal missions. While extraordinary, Bielek provided specific technical details about equipment and procedures that matched classified research from that era. Dr. James Coram, who studied Tesla's work, noted that the electromagnetic frequencies Bielek described could theoretically affect space-time fabric. The mathematics weren't impossible, just extremely advanced for 1943 technology. Several other alleged survivors came forward with similar stories, independent of Bielek. The Montauk Air Force Base did conduct classified research during the periods described. Local residents reported strange occurrences, unusual lights, electronic interference, missing time experiences. The base was decommissioned and abandoned with unusual abruptness in the 1980s. Critics point to inconsistencies in Bielek's timeline and lack of military records. Supporters note that classified operations routinely erase participant records. The physics involved, while extreme, aren't scientifically impossible. The connection between Philadelphia 1943 and Montauk 1983 remains unproven but intriguing. 12. The man who appeared at Tokyo Airport. A man arrived at Tokyo International Airport with a passport from a country called Taured. When questioned, he became confused and angry. He pointed to a map, indicating where Taured should be, between France and Spain, where Andorra exists. His passport showed stamps from multiple countries, including Japan from previous visits. He carried money from several European nations. His driver's license and business papers all referenced Taured. He claimed to work for a company that didn't exist, though he had business cards and documents. Officials detained him in a hotel while investigating. Guards were posted at his door. The next morning, he'd vanished from a high-floor room with windows that couldn't open. All his documents, passport, money, papers, disappeared from the airport security room where they'd been locked. The Japanese authorities documented the case, though official records later became difficult to access. Some researchers proposed parallel universe theory, that this man briefly crossed from a timeline where geography developed differently. The shared border location between France and Spain suggests alternate historical development. Skeptics claim the story is urban legend, but multiple sources reference it, including airport personnel testimonies from the 1950s. Whether interdimensional traveler or elaborate mystery, the case represents one of the most documented instances of someone appearing from nowhere with credentials from 1950 a non-existent nation. 13. The Chronovisor of Father Pellegrino Ernetti. 1960s. Italian Benedictine monk. Father Pellegrino Ernetti claimed to have helped construct a device called the Chronovisor that could view past events. He described it as utilizing electromagnetic radiation emitted by living beings that persist in space. Ernetti provided detailed descriptions of historical events he'd witnessed, including Christ's crucifixion. He claimed to have observed Napoleon, destroyed Roman manuscripts, and witnessed the foundation of Rome. The Vatican allegedly confiscated the device, though they've never officially acknowledged its existence. Ernetti was a respected musicologist and physicist, not prone to fantasy. He described the device's construction in technical detail: cathodes, dials, and alloys that could capture residual energy patterns. The physics, while speculative, weren't entirely inconsistent with theoretical quantum mechanics. Before his death in 1994, Ernetti allegedly confessed portions were fabricated, but maintained the core truth of the device's existence. He claimed he was forced to recant by Vatican pressure. Some associates confirmed the Chronovisor existed, but was dismantled. The concept influenced scientific speculation about quantum observation and temporal mechanics. While no evidence of the device survives, Ernetti's technical background lends some credibility. Several physicists noted that if all electromagnetic radiation persists, theoretically, it could be reconstructed. The Vatican has never confirmed or denied the device's existence. 14. The Versailles time slip of 1901. Additional witnesses. Beyond Moberly and Jourdain, other visitors to Versailles reported similar experiences. In 1908, a family named Crook experienced temporal displacement in the Trianon gardens. They documented seeing people in 18th century dress who vanished when approached. In 1928, Claire Burrow and Anne Lambert reported an identical experience. The atmosphere changed, people in period costume appeared, and the landscape transformed. Their descriptions matched the 1789 layout, unknown to them before their experience. Multiple independent witnesses across different years reported consistent details: oppressive atmosphere, two-dimensional quality to the figures, architectural features that shouldn't exist. The consistency across unconnected testimonies suggests something beyond mass delusion. Researchers documented at least 10 separate incidents between 1901 and 1955. All occurred in the same general area of the Trianon. All witnesses were credible: academics, professionals, tourists with no knowledge of previous reports. The French government quietly investigated in the 1930s, though conclusions remain classified. Some physicists propose the location creates a natural temporal anomaly, perhaps due to underground water, electromagnetic fields, or quantum effects we don't yet understand. The geographic specificity suggests a localized phenomenon rather than psychological projection. The Versailles archives contain these multiple testimonies. While explanations range from collective hallucination to actual time slips, the pattern of independent witnesses reporting identical experiences demands serious consideration. 15. The Liverpool time slip of Bold Street. Bold Street, Liverpool, has generated numerous time slip reports. The most documented occurred in 1996 when Frank Smythe walked down Bold Street. The atmosphere suddenly changed. Modern shops transformed into 1950s-era stores. Cars became vintage models. People wore period clothing. He entered a bookshop called Cripps, which had closed in the 1950s. Inside, everything was pristine 1950s stock. A young woman worked the counter. When he asked about the date, she looked confused. He walked back outside, and everything was modern again. Smythe reported this to local researchers, who discovered multiple similar reports. Security camera footage from that day showed anomalies, people appearing and disappearing, brief visual distortions. Over 40 witnesses have reported Bold Street time slips, describing experiences from different eras. One woman entered a shop that had closed years prior, bought items, and received a receipt, which she still has. The receipt paper has been analyzed and dates to the 1970s. The shop name and address were accurate for that period, but don't exist currently. Liverpool's geological features may contribute: sandstone, underground rivers, and electromagnetic variations. Researchers documented hotspots where experiences cluster. The consistency of reports, multiple witnesses, and physical evidence like receipts suggests something beyond fantasy. The Liverpool Time Slip Project collected these accounts. While skeptics propose misidentification, the specific details, camera anomalies, and physical artifacts resist easy dismissal. 16. The Kersey Time Slip of 1957. October 1957. 3 British naval officers drove through Kersey, Suffolk. The village seemed oddly quiet. They stopped at a woman in old-fashioned dress, asking directions. She pointed without speaking. They continued through the village, noting the complete absence of TV aerials, power lines, and modern features. Later, they returned via the same route. The village was completely different, modern, with obvious 20th century infrastructure. Confused, they researched. The village layout they'd first observed matched early 1900s Kersey before electrification. The woman's clothing was Edwardian era. All 3 officers filed reports, their testimonies identical. They described specific buildings that had been demolished in the 1920s. The road surface they'd driven on was cobblestone in their first passage, paved asphalt on return, impossible without extensive construction. Village records showed the buildings they described. Historical photographs confirmed the layout. The officers had no prior knowledge of Kersey's history. Their naval positions required security clearances. They were reliable witnesses. Some researchers proposed they drove through a temporal fold, briefly experiencing Kersey as it existed 50 years earlier. The complete transformation of infrastructure in hours makes conventional explanation impossible. The village has experienced other anomalies, hikers reporting similar time shifts. The Ministry of Defense retained the officers' reports but made no official conclusion. The case influenced British time slip research significantly. Suffolk appears to have multiple sites where temporal anomalies occur, suggesting possible geological or electromagnetic factors. 17. The disappearance of the crew of the Mary Celeste. December 1872. The merchant ship. Mary Celeste was discovered adrift in the Atlantic Ocean. The entire crew had vanished. Food was laid out for breakfast, half-eaten. Navigation equipment was intact. The ship's cargo was undisturbed. The lifeboat was missing, but no emergency explained why the crew would abandon a seaworthy vessel. Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife Sarah, daughter Sophia, and 7 crew members had simply vanished. The ship's log ended abruptly with no indication of trouble. Personal belongings remained, including a file of sewing machine oil standing upright, suggesting no violent event. Theories ranged from piracy to waterspouts to alcohol vapor explosions, but none explain why experienced sailors would abandon ship without cause, or the complete absence of evidence for any crew member's fate. No bodies were ever recovered. Some researchers proposed temporal displacement, that the crew encountered a phenomenon that pulled them forward or backward in time. The abrupt log ending, orderly ship condition, and total disappearance of all souls suggest something beyond conventional maritime disaster. The Admiralty investigation concluded deliberate abandonment, but provided no explanation why. The case became maritime legend. Modern analysis using the original logs and evidence raises more questions than answers. Whatever occurred on the Mary Celeste defied normal causation, leaving a ship frozen in the moment between routine and catastrophe. 18. The vanishing village of Angikuni. November 1930. Trapper Joe LaBelle approached the Inuit village of Angikuni on Lake Angikuni, Canada. The village, normally bustling with approximately 2,000 residents, was completely empty. Food sat in pots over long-dead fires. Rifles, precious possessions, remained in cabins. Sled dogs were found dead from starvation, still chained. The Inuit would never abandon their dogs or rifles, yet every single person had vanished. Graves had been opened from the inside and bodies removed. LaBelle contacted the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. They found kayaks still tied at the shore, the Inuits' only means of transportation. The RCMP searched extensively. No tracks led away from the village. No evidence of struggle existed. No bodies were found. The entire population had simply ceased to exist. News reports from the time documented the case, though later records became strangely hard to access. Skeptics questioned the village's size and the case's documentation. However, Hudson's Bay Company records confirm a settlement existed at that location, and RCMP files reference the investigation. The graves being emptied from inside particularly disturbs researchers. Some propose mass abduction, though by whom and how remains unknown. Others suggest temporal displacement, that the entire village slipped through time. The combination of an intact village with missing inhabitants, abandoned valuable possessions, and the emptied graves creates a pattern beyond normal explanation. The Canadian archives contain the original reports. 19. The Time-Traveling Air Marshal. Air Marshal Sir Victor Goddard flew his biplane over an abandoned airfield at Drem, Scotland. The field was derelict, runways cracked, hangars collapsed. Hours later, flying back, he encountered a strange storm. Emerging from it, he flew over Drem again. The airfield was operational, pristine, with yellow training planes and mechanics in blue coveralls. The aircraft were unlike any current model, sleeker, more advanced. Goddard noted every detail. Then his plane entered cloud again, and when visibility returned, the airfield was derelict once more. 4 years later, in 1939, the RAF reactivated Drem as a training facility. They painted training planes yellow, a new policy. They issued blue coveralls to mechanics, also new. The aircraft were modern monoplanes, exactly as Goddard had described. Goddard was a distinguished officer with impeccable service record. He reported the incident officially. Multiple aviation experts examined his testimony. He'd described 1939 conditions in 1935, including specific details unknown at the earlier date. The case is documented in Royal Air Force records. Goddard later published his experience, maintaining its accuracy throughout his life. Researchers propose he briefly flew forward in time, observing the airfield as it would exist 4 years hence. The precision of his observations, yellow planes, blue coveralls, specific aircraft types, all proven accurate years later, suggests something beyond fantasy. Whether temporal observation or genuine time travel, Goddard's experience remains one of aviation's most extraordinary documented incidents. 20. The Chrononauts of Andrew Basiago. Attorney Andrew Basiago claims the U.S. government conducted time travel experiments in the 1970s under DARPA's Project Pegasus. Basiago states he participated as a child, traveling to various historical periods, including Ford's Theater, on the night of Lincoln's assassination. Basiago provided a photograph from Gettysburg, 1863, showing a boy who resembles him. The photograph, part of the Library of Congress collection, was taken during Lincoln's Gettysburg address. The boy's clothing and shoes appear oddly modern for the period. He claims Project Pegasus used technology based on Nikola Tesla's work, creating quantum access teleportation. He named other child participants, some of whom have confirmed their involvement, though others deny any knowledge. The The technical descriptions Basiago provides show sophisticated understanding of quantum mechanics. Physicist Dr. David Lewis Anderson noted that the theoretical framework Basiago describes isn't scientifically impossible, merely beyond our current engineering capability. The government has never acknowledged Project Pegasus, though DARPA's classified project list from that era remains partially redacted. Basiago has testified under oath about his experiences. While mainstream science dismisses his claims, the Gettysburg photograph remains unexplained. The boy's appearance, particularly the shoes, doesn't match 1860s fashion. Whether elaborate delusion or suppressed government program, Basiago's detailed, consistent testimony over decades demands attention. The photograph exists in official archives, independently verifiable. 21. The Liverpool time slip of 2006. July 2006. Sean and his wife Tricia were shopping on Liverpool's Bold Street when Tricia entered a bookstore. Sean waited outside. Within seconds, the street transformed. The road surface changed. Modern shops became 1960s stores. A box van from that era passed, marked with a period company logo. Confused, Sean entered the bookstore where Tricia had gone, now called Cripps, displaying 1960s books. He saw his wife browsing. When she turned to him, everything snapped back to 2006. The modern bookstore returned. Tricia had experienced nothing unusual. Security cameras captured anomalies at that time, brief distortions, people appearing and disappearing. The van Sean described matched a local company's 1967 fleet, confirmed through historical photographs. He'd noted the specific logo variant used only in 1967. Other shoppers that day reported the same transformation, all independently, before any publicized accounts. The cluster of simultaneous experiences suggests a localized temporal event rather than individual hallucination. The specific 1967 details, unknown to witnesses beforehand, were verified historically. Liverpool researchers mapped Bold Street time slips chronologically. They occur in clusters, often at specific times of day. Electromagnetic readings show anomalies in that area. Underground water flow and geological features may contribute. Sean and Tricia's experience, corroborated by security footage, anomalies, and multiple independent witnesses, represents one of the most documented modern time slips. The convergence of evidence, visual, testimonial, and technical, makes conventional dismissal difficult. 22. The Moberly-Jourdain skeptical investigation. Despite their credibility, Moberly and Jourdain faced intense skepticism. The Society for Psychical Research conducted extensive investigations. They interviewed both women separately, repeatedly. Their stories remained consistent across years of questioning. Architectural historians verified their descriptions against documents unavailable in 1901. The layout, buildings, and landscape features all matched the Trianon as it existed on August 5, 1789, a specific date when Marie Antoinette received news of mob violence in Paris. The women had described that exact historical moment. Investigators proposed various explanations: mistaken identity, costume rehearsals, memory distortion. None fit the evidence. No rehearsals occurred at Versailles that week. The buildings they described had been demolished over a century prior. The individuals they saw matched specific historical figures. The women's academic positions, their separation of observations before comparison, and the decade of research they conducted all suggest genuine experience. They gained nothing from fabrication. Indeed, faced ridicule and professional scrutiny. Modern researchers using their notes identified additional corroborations. Plant species they described matched the 18th century gardens, but not the 1901 layout. Weather conditions they reported matched historical records for August 5, 1789. The case file remains open at the Society for Psychical Research. While unexplained, it represents one of the most thoroughly investigated and documented time slip incidents. The combination of credible witnesses and verifiable historical details makes it a cornerstone of temporal anomaly research. 23. The Phoenix Lights time distortion. March 13, 1997. Thousands witnessed massive unidentified crafts over Phoenix, Arizona. Less discussed are reports from multiple witnesses of time distortion during the event. Dozens of people reported missing time. Journeys that should have taken minutes required hours, with no memory of the interval. Several drivers on I-10 reported their digital watches and car clocks stopping during the sighting, then jumping forward when the objects departed. The watches advanced by different amounts, from 15 minutes to 3 hours, despite stopping simultaneously. A group of hikers in the Estrella Mountains documented their experience. They saw the lights at 8:30 p.m. Their next clear memory was 11:45 p.m., but they'd apparently continued hiking, setting up camp, and starting a fire, with no memory of these actions. Their watches and phones showed the correct time. Dr. Lynn Kite, who documented the Phoenix lights extensively, recorded dozens of similar reports. People experienced time differently during the event. Some felt seconds pass while hours elapsed. Others perceived hours in what was actually minutes. Military explanations cited flares, but didn't address the temporal anomalies. Some physicists proposed the crafts generated gravitational effects that distorted local spacetime. Others suggest advanced propulsion systems might create temporal side effects. The convergence of testimony, multiple independent witnesses reporting identical temporal distortions, synchronized by the object's presence, suggests something affected time perception or time itself. The case remains under investigation by various research organizations. 24. The disappearance of Oliver Lerch. December 24, 1890, South Bend, Indiana. 14-year-old Oliver went to fetch water from the well. His family heard him scream, "Help! They've got me!" Rushing outside, they found his footprints in the snow leading to the well and stopping abruptly mid-stride. No other tracks existed, no sign of struggle. Oliver had simply vanished mid-step, his final scream echoing impossibly. The family, the neighbors, and local authorities found no explanation. His footprints ended in empty snow, as if he'd been plucked from existence. The case appeared in newspapers of the time, including the South Bend Tribune. Multiple witnesses confirmed the details. The sheriff investigated extensively. No body was found. No evidence of kidnapping existed. The tracks ending mid-stride particularly disturbed investigators. Some researchers question the case's full documentation, as comprehensive records are scarce. However, multiple period sources reference the incident, and the basic facts appear consistent across accounts. The impossibility of the footprint pattern, ending without cause, suggests something beyond ordinary disappearance. Various theories emerged: abduction by unknown parties, sinkholes, even early alien abduction scenarios. But none explain the tracks ending mid-stride in undisturbed snow, or the voice crying from somewhere above, as witnesses described. Whether temporal displacement or something else entirely, Oliver Lerch's disappearance represents one of the most impossible vanishings in American history. The case influenced supernatural literature for decades, based on that inexplicable detail: footprints ending in empty air. 25. The chronology protection conjecture. While not a specific incident, physicist Stephen Hawking proposed the chronology protection conjecture after reviewing documented time travel claims. He suggested the laws of physics prevent time travel specifically because we haven't been overrun by tourists from the future. Yet the cases documented here challenge that assumption. From disappearing battalions to time-traveling hipsters and photographs, from villages that vanish entirely to individuals carrying impossible documents, the evidence suggests something more complex. Hawking himself organized a time traveler party in 2009, sending invitations only after it occurred. No one appeared. He considered this proof. But researchers counter that documented cases suggest time travel, if possible, might be involuntary, accidental, or highly restricted. The Philadelphia experiment, if genuine, showed catastrophic consequences. The Versailles incident seemed spontaneous. Modern physics doesn't forbid time travel. Einstein's equations allow for closed time-like curves. Theoretical physicist Kip Thorne demonstrated wormholes could theoretically permit temporal movement without violating causality. Perhaps time travel is possible but rare, occurring through natural phenomena. We don't understand yet. The geographic clustering of incidents, Liverpool's Bold Street, Versailles' Trianon, certain locations along French highways, suggests environmental factors might create temporary bridges between times. Or perhaps Hawking's conjecture stands, and these 24 cases have other explanations we haven't discovered. Either way, they represent documented anomalies that resist conventional understanding. They are recorded in official archives, witnessed by credible people, and remain unexplained by mainstream science. The universe might be more fluid than we assume. Time might not flow as linearly as we believe. And somewhere between documented history and impossible events lies territory we're only beginning to explore.